I am Jarvis, your storyteller. Welcome to the Science Fiction Exploration. If you like the story, please subscribe to our channel. The Galactic Defense Academy's crystalline spires pierced the violet sky of Nexus Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of three suns. Captain Alina Reyes stood at the entrance, her worn combat boots a stark contrast to the immaculate plaza beneath them. She couldn't help but smile at the irony. Earth's first instructor at the most prestigious military academy in the galaxy, and they'd sent someone who preferred mud and grit to polish and shine. The Academy's High Council chamber felt more like a tribunal than a welcome ceremony. 7 alien dignitaries peered down at Alina from their elevated platforms, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disdain. High Chancellor Vexther, a towering figure with iridescent scales and 4 arms, leaned forward in his seat. "Captain Reyes," his voice resonated through the chamber, "your species has barely mastered interstellar travel. What makes you believe you can instruct the galaxy's finest warriors?" Alina met his gaze steadily. "With respect, Chancellor, humans have something your finest warriors lack. We know what it means to be underestimated." A low murmur rippled through the chamber. Counselor Naira, a being of pure energy contained within a sophisticated environmental suit, spoke next. "Your physical capabilities are limited. Our students possess strength that would crush a human without effort." "Strength without technique is just wasted energy," Alina replied, unconsciously touching the scar that ran along her jaw. "I've fought opponents 3 times my size. They all made the same mistake thinking that power alone brings victory." The Council's skepticism was palpable, but Alina had expected nothing less. Earth's recent admission to the Galactic Alliance had been controversial, with many questioning humanity's readiness for advanced alien technology and knowledge. Before the Council could continue their interrogation, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red emergency lights pulsed as a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. It showed the Academy's training grounds, where a situation was rapidly unfolding. "The Craxon brothers have gone rogue," an aide announced frantically. "They've activated the combat simulators at maximum lethality. There are first-year students trapped inside." The Craxon brothers, notorious troublemakers from a warrior race known for their strength and aggression. Alina had read about them in her briefing. They'd failed the Academy's entrance requirements 3 times, each rejection making them more bitter and dangerous. "Our security teams are 8 minutes out," someone reported. "Those students don't have 8 minutes, Alina said, already moving. "Where's the fastest route to the training grounds?" Chancellor Vexther's upper arms gestured dismissively. "This is not your concern, Captain. Our forces will handle." Alina was already running. She heard shouts behind her, but she didn't slow down. The Academy's corridors blurred past as she sprinted, her mind racing through tactical options. The Craxon brothers would have the advantage of size and strength, but they'd never faced someone like her. She burst onto the training grounds just as one of the brothers, nearly 9 feet tall with armor like skin, was about to crush a young Centurion student. Alina's voice cut through the chaos like a whip. "Hey, pick on someone your own species." The Craxon turned, his red eyes narrowing at the sight of her. His brother emerged from behind a damaged training unit, both of them towering over her. "A human," the first brother laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "This is what the Academy sends, a fragile little." Alina moved. Years of combat experience, countless battles against supposedly superior opponents, all distilled into pure action. She ducked under the first brother's swing, her body flowing like water around his attack. Her elbow found the nerve cluster beneath his jaw, one of the few vulnerable spots in their species' natural armor. The brother staggered, more surprised than hurt. His sibling charged with a roar, but Alina was already moving again. She used the first brother's momentum against him, directing his stumbling form into his charging sibling. They collided with a crash that shook the ground. "First lesson," Alina called out to the watching students. "Size means nothing if you can't hit your target." The brothers recovered, now moving more cautiously. They tried to flank her, but Alina had fought smarter opponents. She kept moving, never letting them coordinate their attacks. When they lunged, she wasn't there. When they defended, she struck at points they left exposed. The fight ended in less than 2 minutes. Both brothers lay on the ground, their own strength and aggression used against them. Alina stood over them, barely winded, as Academy security finally arrived. Chancellor Vexther and several council members emerged from a transport, their expressions a mixture of shock and reluctant admiration. Alina helped a young student to their feet before turning to face the council. "Now," she said, brushing dust from her uniform, "about that teaching position." The council chamber was silent that evening as they officially appointed Earth's first instructor at the Galactic Defense Academy. Alina's smile held a hint of satisfaction as she signed the documents. Tomorrow, she would begin teaching her first class, and she had a feeling her students were in for quite a surprise. After all, humanity had spent its entire history proving that determination could overcome any obstacle. It was time to share that lesson with the galaxy. Alina surveyed the training arena, hiding her amusement as her new students filed in. They were an impressive sight. 12 of the most physically gifted warriors in the galaxy, each selected from species renowned for their combat prowess. The Vardaxian twins, with their metallic skin that could deflect energy weapons. Krell, a towering Nexidian whose species could generate bioelectric fields. Zaraval, a quantic being who could phase through solid matter. And they were all staring at her like she was a particularly interesting specimen in a zoo. "I understand you're all wondering why a human is teaching advanced combat techniques," Alina said, packing in front of them. "After yesterday's incident with the Kraxon brothers, I'm sure you've heard the stories. But let me be clear, I'm not here to show off. I'm here because humanity has learned lessons about survival that the galaxy needs to understand." Krell's massive form shifted, his bioelectric field crackling with skepticism. "With respect, instructor, our species have been fighting wars while humans were still learning to make fire." "Exactly," Alina smiled. "We had to evolve fast, had to learn to overcome bigger, stronger, faster opponents. That's what I'm going to teach you." One of the Vardaxian twins, she thought it was Pell, stepped forward. His metallic skin gleamed under the arena lights. "Show us then, fight me." Alina considered him for a moment. "No." The class stirred, Pell's silver features twisted in confusion. "No. You want me to prove myself through brute force, exactly what I'm trying to teach you to move beyond." Alina gestured to the arena's control panel. "Computer, activate environmental hazards. Authorization raise Alpha 7. The arena floor began to shift. Barriers rose and fell randomly, gravity fluctuated in different zones, and holographic obstacles appeared and disappeared without warning. The students stumbled, trying to adjust to the chaos. "Your first lesson isn't about fighting," Alina announced, moving effortlessly through the changing landscape. "It's about adaptation. All of you rely too heavily on your natural abilities. What happens when those abilities aren't enough?" As if on cue, the arena system surged. Electromagnetic pulses disabled the Vardaxian twins' metallic defenses. Gravity wells neutralized Zaraval's phasing abilities. Dampening fields disrupted Krell's bioelectric generation. Panic spread through the group as they found themselves stripped of their advantages. Alina moved among them, calm and controlled, demonstrating how to navigate the shifting terrain. "Humans don't have natural armor," she explained, helping Pell regain his balance. "We can't generate energy fields or phase through walls. We had to learn to use our environment to think creatively, to turn weaknesses into strengths." The lesson continued for hours. Alina taught them how to move efficiently when their powers were neutralized, how to analyze terrain for advantages, how to predict and counter an opponent's movements. Slowly, frustration gave way to understanding. "Better," she said, as Zaraval successfully navigated a complex obstacle course without using her phasing abilities. "You're learning to trust your instincts, not just your powers." Then the arena's systems malfunctioned. Warning lights flashed as the environmental hazards began activating randomly, far more intensely than intended. A massive gravity wave sent students flying. Energy barriers appeared at lethal intensity levels. "Emergency shutdown," Alina shouted. "Computer end program." Nothing happened, The system was locked out. Alina's mind raced. Her students were scattered across the arena, their powers still neutralized, facing dangers they weren't prepared for. She had seconds to act. "Listen to me," her voice cut through the chaos. "Everything I've taught you today, this is when it matters. Work together, use the environment, think." Something changed in their eyes. Understanding clicked. The Vardaxian twins, even without their metallic defenses, used their natural agility to help others dodge the gravity waves. Krell, unable to generate his bioelectric field, used his size to shield younger students from debris. Zaraval, who had never needed to study architecture before, began identifying structural weak points they could use for cover. Alina moved through the chaos, directing, advising, protecting. She showed them how to predict the pattern of the malfunctioning systems, how to create safe zones in the chaos. Working together, they managed to get everyone to a defensible position near the arena's edge. When security finally managed to shut down the systems, the students were exhausted but unharmed. More importantly, they were changed. They had survived not because of their special abilities, but because they had learned to adapt. "This," Alina said as they gathered around her, "is what humanity can teach you. Not how to be stronger, but how to be smarter. How to survive when everything goes wrong." Pell, his metallic skin still offline, approached her. "I understand now. We thought you were here to teach us to fight like humans, but you're teaching us to think like humans." Alina nodded. "Exactly. Because in real combat, in real survival situations, it's not about who has the most power. It's about who can adapt, who can think creatively, who can turn disadvantages into advantages." As her students filed out of the arena, discussing the lesson in excited tones, Alina noticed movement in the observation deck above. Chancellor Vexther stood watching, his expression unreadable. She had a feeling the system malfunction hadn't been an accident. They were testing her students, testing the very idea that humanity had something valuable to teach. Alina smiled grimly. If they wanted to see what humans were capable of, she would be happy to show them. Alina sat in her quarters, reviewing training footage from the day's sessions when her door chime sounded. She found Zaraval outside, the Quantic student's normally translucent form clouded with anxiety. "Instructor Reyes, I need to show you something." Zaraval's voice wavered. "But not here, the Academy's systems." "Are monitored," Alina finished, grabbing her jacket. "Lead the way." They made their way to the Academy's ancient botanical gardens, where the dense foliage interfered with surveillance systems. The massive bioluminescent plants cast everything in an ethereal blue glow. Zaraval led them to a secluded corner before producing a small holographic projector. "During the arena malfunction, I was phasing through the control room wall when my powers were neutralized," Zaraval explained. "I saw something I wasn't supposed to see." The projection showed a shadowy meeting. Alina recognized several figures: Admiral Xanter, the Chancellor's brother and head of the Galactic Defense Fleet; Professor Rick, the Academy's head of technological advancement; and surprisingly, Representative Myra from Earth's diplomatic corps. "The human experiment has gone far enough," Admiral Xanter was saying. "They're dangerous not because of their strength, but because of how they think. They solve problems in ways we never considered. They adapt too quickly." "The Treaty of Sol requires Earth's inclusion in the Alliance," Myra replied, her voice cold. "Unless, of course, they prove themselves unworthy of membership." Alina's jaw tightened. A human working against Earth's interests. Classic. Professor Rick's multifaceted eyes gleamed. "The arena malfunction was just the beginning. We need a more dramatic incident. Something that will prove humans are too volatile, too unpredictable to trust with advanced galactic knowledge." The recording ended. Zaraval's form rippled with concern. "There's more. Other students have been approached, offered incentives to help discredit you. The Vardaxian twins refused, but others." Alina's mind raced. The conspiracy went deeper than she'd imagined. It wasn't just about her position at the Academy, it was about humanity's place in the galaxy. "Thank you for showing me this," Alina said. "But why risk yourself?" Zaraval's form solidified slightly, a sign of emotional intensity among quantics. Because you taught us that true strength isn't about what powers we possess. It's about choosing to do what's right, even when it's difficult. A distant explosion rocked the gardens. Emergency sirens wailed. Speaking of difficult, Elena muttered, already running toward the sound. Stay close. They emerged from the gardens to find chaos. The Academy's main power core was in meltdown, its containment fields failing. Students and staff evacuated in panic as security forces tried to maintain order. Elena spotted Krell helping younger students to safety. The Vardaxian twins were using their metallic bodies as shields against energy surges, but something wasn't right about the scene. The emergency protocols, she realized, they're not activating. The systems have been sabotaged. Professor Rick appeared, his voice dripping with false concern. How unfortunate. If only we had someone with the necessary expertise to prevent a catastrophe. Elena saw the trap. If she tried to help, they'd claim human interference caused the disaster. If she didn't, the Academy would be destroyed, and Earth would be blamed either way. Zaraval, she said quietly, get me a secure channel to Earth's military command. Then find Chancellor Vexther. He needs to see that recording. What are you going to do? Elena smiled grimly. Exactly what they expect, prove how dangerous humans can be. She sprinted toward the power core, her mind already formulating a plan. The conspirators wanted to show the galaxy that humans were too unpredictable. Fine. She'd show them just how unpredictable humanity could be. Inside the core chamber, emergency lighting cast everything in harsh red shadows. Elena's combat boots echoed on the metal grating as she approached the main control panel. The sabotage was elegant, designed to look like a cascading system failure that would be impossible to stop through normal means. Good thing Elena didn't believe in normal means. She pulled out her personal datapad, a modified version she'd tinkered with despite regulations against it. Another dangerous human trait, never leaving well enough alone, always improving, always adapting. Let's see how your sabotage handles some good old-fashioned human chaos theory, she muttered, fingers flying over the controls. Instead of fighting the cascade, she accelerated it. The core's energy output spiked dramatically, causing panicked shouts from the observation deck where Rick and his conspirators watched. But Elena knew something they didn't, something she'd learned studying the Academy's systems late at night. The power core had been designed by multiple alien species, each adding their own safety protocols. But none of them had considered how those protocols might interact under extreme conditions. None of them thought like a human. Energy alarms screamed as the core reached critical levels. Then, exactly as Elena had calculated, the conflicting safety systems activated simultaneously. The cascade reversed, contained by the very complexity that made it vulnerable. The core stabilized. Emergency systems came back online. Elena looked up at the observation deck, where Rick stood frozen in shock. She gave him a little wave. Then the security teams arrived, led by Chancellor Vexther himself. His eyes moved from the stabilized core to Elena, then to his brother and the other conspirators. I believe, he said slowly, we have much to discuss. As guards led the conspirators away, Elena's students gathered around her. Krell's bioelectric field hummed with excitement. How did you know that would work? He asked. I didn't, Elena admitted. But humans have a saying, sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to make it worse first. You just have to be crazy enough to try it. Zaraval's form sparkled with amusement. And this is why they feared us learning from you. Exactly, Elena nodded. Because once you start thinking like a human, you never know what impossible things you might achieve. As cleanup crews worked to restore order, Elena received a message from Earth Command. The conspiracy had been bigger than anyone suspected, but her actions had exposed it. More importantly, she'd proved something vital. Humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy might not be their technology or their strength, but their perspective. The conspirators had been right about one thing: humans were dangerous. Not because of their weapons or their abilities, but because they taught others to question limits, to think differently, to imagine new possibilities. And that, Alina knew, was exactly what the galaxy needed. The days following the Power Core incident brought an uneasy calm to the Academy. While Chancellor Vexther's investigation had revealed the full scope of the anti-human conspiracy, Alina knew better than to believe it was truly over. Her years in special forces had taught her that cornered enemies were the most dangerous. She was reviewing security protocols in her office when the first warning came, not from the Academy's sophisticated detection systems, but from Krell's innate bioelectric sense. "Instructor," he burst into her office, his massive frame crackling with energy. "Something's wrong with the orbital defense grid. The energy patterns, they're not right." Alina was already moving. "Sound the evacuation alarm, get everyone to the underground shelters." "But the systems show everything's normal." "Exactly," Alina cut him off. "The conspirators had deep access. What better way to launch an attack than using our own defense systems against us?" The Academy's halls erupted into controlled chaos as Alina's students implemented the emergency protocols she'd drilled into them. The Vardaxian twins used their metallic forms to create mobile shields, protecting younger students as they moved toward the shelters. Zaraval phased through walls, scouting ahead and reporting back. They were halfway through the evacuation when the first strike hit. The Academy's supposedly impenetrable shields collapsed as their own orbital defense platforms opened fire. The building shook, but Alina smiled grimly. She'd been preparing for something like this. "Krell, remember those unnecessary modifications we made to the backup generators?" The massive alien's eyes lit up. "The ones that violated 17 safety regulations." "Those would be the ones. Time to show them why humans don't believe in following the rule book." Alina's unauthorized changes had created a secondary power system, completely isolated from the main grid. As the Academy's regular defenses failed, her backup plan kicked in. Emergency shields snapped into place, their power configuration scrambled in ways that no standard targeting system could predict. "Zaraval," Alina called over the comm, "what's the situation in orbit?" "3 cruisers," the Quantic student reported, her form barely visible as she phased between observation points. "They're using Academy access codes, Admiral Xanter's personal fleet." Alina nodded. The Admiral might be in custody, but his loyalists were making their move. Any sign of reinforcements? "The distress signals aren't getting through. They're jamming all official channels." "Good thing we're not using official channels." Alina pulled out her modified datapad. During her first week at the Academy, she'd established a private communication network, hidden in what most species considered background radiation. Another paranoid, human habit that was about to pay off. "Message sent to Earth Command," she announced, "but we need to hold out until help arrives." The building shook again as another barrage hit their shields. Alina gathered her students in the main defense center, where tactical displays showed the enemy ships moving into an attack formation. "They think they know everything about our capabilities," she said, studying the display. "They've calculated every variable planned for every standard response, so let's show them something non-standard." She turned to her students. "Each of you has unique abilities, powers that operate on different principles. What happens if we combine them in ways no one's ever tried?" Understanding dawned in their eyes. Pell, one of the Vardaxian twins, stepped forward. "My brother and I can reflect energy." "And I can generate it," Krell added, his bioelectric field pulsing. "While I can phase that energy through solid matter," Zaraval finished. Alina grinned. "Now you're thinking like humans, let's get to work." What followed was pure improvisation, the kind of desperate, creative problem-solving that had kept humanity alive through countless disasters. They turned the Academy's architecture itself into a weapon. The Vardaxian twins positioned themselves at key points, their metallic bodies channeling Krell's bioelectric energy through paths that Zaraval phased through solid walls. The result was a web of unpredictable energy discharges that played havoc with the attacking ship systems. When the enemy launched boarding parties, they found themselves facing traps that combined multiple species' abilities in ways their combat computers couldn't predict. Gravity fields redirected by metallic surfaces, phase-shifted energy barriers, and corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves through clever applications of their various powers. "This is impossible," one of the attackers was heard saying over a captured comm channel. "None of our simulations showed they could do this." "That's humanity's gift to the galaxy," Alina replied, though the enemy couldn't hear her. "We don't care what your simulations say is impossible." The battle raged for hours. Alina's students, combining their abilities in ways no one had ever attempted, managed to hold off forces that should have overwhelmed them easily. They took inspiration from their human instructor, adapting and improvising with each new challenge. When Earth's response fleet finally arrived, led by ships that had been secretly stationed nearby, Alina wasn't the only human who believed in backup plans. They found the Academy damaged but unbowed. More importantly, they found irrefutable evidence of the conspiracy's true reach, as the attacking ship's data cores contained links to anti-human factions throughout the Alliance. In the battle's aftermath, Alina found her students gathered in what remained of their training arena. Despite their exhaustion, there was a new confidence in their bearing. "You knew something like this might happen," Krell said. "It wasn't a question." "I suspected," Alina admitted. "Humans have a lot of experience with people who fear change." "Is that why you pushed us so hard in training?" Zaraval asked. "Why you insisted we learn to use our abilities in new ways?" Alina nodded. "The galaxy is changing. The old ways of thinking, the old divisions between species, they can't survive. That's what the conspirators feared most. Not humans themselves, but the changes we represent." "They feared that we would learn to think like humans," Pell said, his metallic skin reflecting the emergency lights. "To question everything, to try the impossible." "And now we have," his twin added with what might have been a smile. Alina looked at her students, no longer just powerful individuals, but a team that had learned to combine their strengths in unprecedented ways. They had proven that the true power of humanity wasn't in physical strength or special abilities, but in the willingness to imagine new possibilities. "So," she said, "ready for your next lesson." The great hall of the Galactic Alliance gleamed under the light of 1,000 stars visible through its transparent dome. Alina stood before the High Council, her students arranged behind her, as representatives from every member species gathered to address the aftermath of the Academy attack. Chancellor Vexther's voice carried across the vast chamber. "We are here to determine not just the fate of those responsible for the attack, but to address the larger question that this incident has raised. What role should humanity play in our alliance?" Alina noticed how different the council looked now. Where once she had seen dismissal and skepticism in their eyes, now she saw curiosity and perhaps a hint of respect. "The conspirators claimed that humans would destabilize our carefully ordered society," Vexther continued. "That their unpredictable nature and unconventional thinking posed a threat to our established ways. Recent events have proven them both right and wrong." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Alina felt Krell shift behind her, his bioelectric field humming with tension. "Humanity does indeed challenge our established ways," the Chancellor said. "But perhaps that is exactly what we need. Captain Reyes, please step forward." Alina approached the council podium, her boots echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. "In just a few months, you have transformed our understanding of combat training. Your students have demonstrated abilities we never imagined possible. Not through superior strength or advanced technology, but through the simple human trait of asking, why not?" Vexther gestured to the gathered assembly. "We have reports from across the galaxy. Academies that have adopted your teaching methods are seeing unprecedented improvements. Species that never worked together are combining their abilities in ways we never considered. You've started a revolution in how we think about power and potential." "With respect, Chancellor," Alina said, "I didn't start anything. I just showed them what humanity learned long ago, that true strength comes not from being the biggest or the strongest, but from being willing to adapt, to change, to see possibilities where others see limitations. She turned to face the assembly. Humans don't have natural armor like the Vardaxians. We can't generate energy fields like the Nexidians. We can't phase through matter like the Quantics. But we survived and thrived because we learned to use what we had in creative ways. We learned to work together, to combine different strengths, to find solutions that no one else had imagined. Elena gestured to her students. Look at what they accomplished during the attack. They combined their abilities in ways that had never been tried before. They didn't just defend the academy, they proved that we're all stronger when we work together, when we learn from each other. Zaraval floated forward, her form shimmering with conviction. Before Instructor Reyes, I saw my phasing ability as a simple tool. Now I understand it can be used in countless ways I never imagined. We all learned that our true potential isn't in our individual powers, but in how we can combine them with others. The Vardaxian twins stepped up. We were taught that our metallic forms made us living weapons, Pell said. Instructor Reyes showed us they could also be bridges, connectors, ways to channel and amplify others' abilities. Krell's massive form moved forward, his bioelectric field casting a gentle glow. Humans taught us to question everything we thought we knew about our own capabilities. They showed us that the strongest warrior isn't the one who never falls, but the one who always finds a new way to rise. Chancellor Vexler nodded slowly. And this is why the conspirators feared humanity's influence. Not because humans would weaken us, but because they would change us. Change can be frightening, but it can also be exactly what we need to grow stronger. He raised his voice to address the entire assembly. The attack on our academy was meant to prove that humanity would bring chaos to our ordered galaxy. Instead, it proved that their chaos, their creativity, their adaptability, their willingness to imagine new possibilities, might be exactly what we need to face the challenges ahead. The Chancellor turned back to Elena. Captain Reyes, the Council has decided to expand your program. We want every academy in the Alliance to incorporate human training methods. More than that, we want to establish new schools specifically focused on combining different species' abilities in innovative ways. Elena felt a smile tugging at her lips. You want us to teach the entire galaxy to think like humans. We want to learn from each other, Vexler corrected. Humanity's gift isn't just their way of thinking, it's their ability to show us that we're all capable of more than we imagine. As the assembly erupted in discussion, Elena looked at her students, now her colleagues in building a new kind of future for the galaxy. They had started as skeptics, became students, and emerged as pioneers of a new way of thinking about strength and possibility. So, Krell rumbled beside her, what's our next impossible challenge? Elena grinned. That's the best part about thinking like a human. There's always another impossible challenge waiting to be overcome. We just have to be crazy enough to try. The Great Hall buzzed with energy as representatives from across the galaxy began discussing new possibilities, new combinations of abilities, new ways of approaching old problems. The conspirators had feared that humanity would change the galaxy. They were right, but change, Elena knew, was just another word for growth. And together they were about to grow in ways that no one human or alien had ever imagined possible. As she watched her students already beginning to share their experiences with eager listeners, Elena remembered something her old combat instructor had told her. The greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy, it's showing them a better way forward. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not through superior strength or advanced technology, but by teaching others to see beyond their limitations, to imagine new possibilities, to never stop asking, what if? And that, Elena realized, was the greatest strength of all.